I think, in fact, although people say that who cares about history, I think everybody cares. Everybody wants to know about his background. It is my love for knowing what the place is like.
Yes, I think so.
I hope so.
I think it's mostly accurate.
I would like to think so. Yes.
No.
Yes, what I know.
I believe that what I know so far is accurate.
It may not be accurate, right?
I don't know that much, so can't say.
I'm sure some things I heard are what people thought and may not be true.
I'm always open to learning, so I will always feel that my information is limited.
How do I determine what information I've got is accurate? Now, this is something very, very important because, and that's why you have sources. It is something that, in many ways, too, history can be corroborated.
All the streets are actually, well, most of the streets are named after the Angostura family. So Sagan Square, Anna Street, Rosalina Street, Lewis Street, Carter Street. So it's based in Angostura.
Many of the streets in Woodbrooks were named after, I think, chancellors and lords of the House of Commons, because we still operate under the British common law system and the British parliamentary system, and so Woodbrook has a sort of colonial history.
I think Woodbrook used to be a part of the plantation. Woodbrook in itself was a more recent development within the past 50 or so years.
And there was someone who told me something about there are streets in Port of Spain that are named after the children of the people who developed them. Anna Street, Petra Street, etc. Because these people who came here had invented Angostura bitters.
Well, I know that it was underwater because even look where the lighthouse is right now. A lot of reclaimed lands.
You know where like Movie Town is and the port and the wharf and all that? None of that was there before because the water was, all that is reclaimed land. So like by the avenue, because I live above the avenue, right? I think from Ryson Road, go back towards the water, all that was sea. So you have to reclaim all that land, none of that was there before. I
know that where the Twin Towers are now, it wasn't always, that area wasn't always land. That's sort of like basically reclaimed land or filled land that they use. They fill the sea to extend the city.
At one point in time, where we call Independence Square now was called Marine Square, right? And that land was developed into what we have as Independence Square now. That is all refilled land. That was, in the early 1900s, that was Marine Square, because that is where the shoreline, was. And as time developed, they continuously developed that area. Initially, where we call City 8 now was initially for the train to stop. But as, we did away with the train system, they eventually made that into City 8, and they have kept developing the shore from the front of Port of Spain by reclaiming land. So that entire area I've even witnessed the development of Hyatt and the new ministry buildings that they built recently.
When the British captured Trinidad in 1797, Port of Spain was such a far cry from what it is now, and it's bounded street by street. And all the streets, like Charlotte Street, was named Charlotte after the wife of the reigning king at the time. And then Frederick Street was the father of the reigning king, George the Fourth. And then George Street was the father of, he was the father of Frederick, etc. So they all have meanings. And then all the streets going up, like when the British came in, they named the first street, which was called Plaza de la Marina by the Spaniards. They called it King Street for the king. Then the next street was Duke Street. And then the following street was Prince Street, going down on Royalty.
The East Dry River, which was almost like a phenomenon, which seems to be today, and more contained. The height of the water and where the flooding used to take place before they actually did, align the river and structured it properly and so on. And I did see, it was unbelievable, the torrents of water and how things used to happen then, particularly with the flooding.
Most people would have believed, if they didn't read about it, that the river was always like that. But the dry river used to pass through Woodford Square. And then this fellow, what's his name? Charas, he diverted it to be outside of the town, to give the town room.
Maybe the older heads might know about it, but I guess the younger people don't really care much to know either way. I don't think people really care to know. I mean, at the end of the day, you're living now in this century, you're not living then. So people don't really business. Crazy. That's kind of bad though, but people really don't care. Yeah.
No, that's very, very unfortunate. But if you look at Parliament Channel, you will get quite a few snapshots of the history of Port of Spain.
That I would love to think that they should know, but I doubt it. To really know Port of Spain, I think you have to live there.
It's not enforced as part of our, upbringing, as part of our education.
Probably a certain age group of persons who reside in Port of Spain who actually were born and bred there, they would know a little more about the history.
Older people would recall what Port of Spain used to be and could give you certain things about what has changed, but generally most people don't.
Yes, quite a bit would know because children are more educated now. But I think a lot of people do know.
It is true, it is not praising myself, it is true. But I don't think any sort of history of Port of Spain was written before I wrote The Making of Port of Spain and Port of Spain, the World at War. And I don't know how much attention they've been given.
History class should not just be about the Aztecs and Mayans. It should be about local stuff as well.
I mean, they should teach about it in school so people would have an idea. But at the end of the day, half the things that I know about Port of Spain is from my grandparents, like from my grandmother who passed, who told me about these things. So other than that, I would not have known either way.
If you want to know something, you can go get it. You don't have to probably force it down someone's throat.
All we know is, well, as a young person, most of us know, and the ones after me know about what's on TV and what's in America. They actually have more history of America, knowledge of history of America, than they have of the old country. This is Port of Spain, this is where we came from. Because unless you know where you came from, you don't know.
That would be most enjoyable if they would let people know where the country was before and bring them up to speed with how it used to be and what it is now and where it came from.
A lot more should be done to teach about the history of Port of Spain and about all of the cities, counties and boroughs of Trinidad and Tobago in terms of what you're doing here, video productions, old documentaries, interviews with older citizens, stalwarts, old politicians, parliamentarians, even citizens who have contributed, businessmen and so on, people involved in philanthropical work. All of that, I think, is very, very important to document in terms of technology-wise, in a video, in a DVD, even in a book. I think those things are very important, and especially so for Port of Spain, because there's so much of rich history coming out of the city.
Yes, I certainly think so. I certainly think that more should be done. I don't think there's enough interest. And I certainly think there is enough material, there's enough to sustain any sort of advanced knowledge of Port of Spain in schools. I suppose people who love history have their own reasons for sort of trying to find out certain things. But I certainly feel that I think San Fernando too, but Port of Spain mainly, as the mother of the whole thing, the settlement, etc. I think that there should be something in the curriculum for children to get to know the history of Port of Spain. And from the time you get these children learning the history of Port of Spain, they will extend this to their own places. And it will all go very well for lots of places, because you get young people growing up writing the history of where they live.
Help me.
Port of Spain will say, heal me, restore me.
I love all the people who live in Port of Spain and who visit Port of Spain. It's a beautiful city.
All different types of people are coming in now into Port of Spain. It's changing, I can tell you.
Time to stop the madness. Time to stop the madness and get back to let's get back to what matters, you know. Let's have families, true families, and families that don't, you know, interact with each other or want to seek harm to each other or anything like that. Let's start from here, and then we could spread you know, it's like an atom bomb, it's an atom bomb of love, basically. And then when they explode, everybody could get touched by it.
If Port of Spain could speak, it would say, love you, Trinidad.
If Port of Spain could speak, it would rejoice for the poverty that used to be there is no longer there.
You say, well, I've been through hell, but I have survived, and I'm going on. I'm getting there. I think you would say that, because it had really, Port of Spain has really been through quite a lot. I always say charity begins at home, see? But generally speaking, I think if Port of Spain could speak, genuinely, Port of Spain could say that I have progressed, perhaps not as fast or not to the extent that one would have hoped, but I think we have done well. I think so.